John asked me to share my testimony and try to keep it under 5 minutes. So I'm going to give you my life story in under 5 minutes. So I'll do my best. I'm only 36, so it won't be that bad. But starting back, I grew up in a Christian home. My parents were divorced when I was roughly 5 years old. Went to Willow Creek Community Church out in Barrington, and I'm from Crystal Lake originally. And just lived the life of going to church as a young kid. I remember always from the beginning believing in God. To me, God always made sense. To get all of this from nothing never really made sense to me. And so just a creator was always the logical explanation for existence. But God was always just kind of a future thing. I remember always telling myself, future Mike will worry about that. Right now I want to focus on my sports. I played baseball growing up, and I focused on girls. Those are the two main things that were important to me in my life. Was baseball and girls. So like I said, I grew up in the church. I remember serving and holding doors and greeting. Eventually we switched from Willow Creek to Harvest Bible Chapel in Crystal Lake, and was a part of small groups and doing the church thing that every good boy should do. And I was never one to really rebel. I always was afraid to get in trouble in school, and was generally a pretty good kid. It wasn't until I got to college that I would say, I got on my own and started to explore, what it was like to do things that I never did before. And I did. And I remember one of the reasons why I mentioned before that my parents were divorced. One of the reasons why they got divorced was my mom was an alcoholic, and that led to some unfortunate decisions that she had made. But my parents had a good relationship. But one thing that I kind of decided was I was never going to touch alcohol. It just wasn't. I saw kind of the negative effects of that in my life and my mom's life and my dad, and so I kind of made that choice to never drink. It wasn't until college that I was on my own now, and I remember February 8th, 2008, having my first drink, having a little too much to drink, and feeling guilty that weekend, wanting to talk to my mom about it. And it wasn't until the following Tuesday, February 12th, that I got a phone call that my mom died. And I never got to talk to her about that. And that kind of broke me. And again, I believed in God, but at that point, I wanted nothing to do with him, just because my mom had gone through quite a bit, and from physical sexual abuse to obviously being addicted to alcohol, drugs, just a lot of abuse. And but she also, she was a Christian, and I knew that she had a relationship with Christ, and so I just couldn't bring myself to believing in a God who would take that person, who didn't choose the path that the things that happened to her, and so I spiraled down into a time where it just got to be, it got to be the end of the road, what I felt. And I'll never forget, it was in September 2011. Again, I was still going to church. I was still part of Bible studies at this time. On the outside, you would have thought, everything was good, and I was a believer, and I remember driving home, after some bad decisions. It was at 2 o'clock in the middle of the night, and pulled over on the side of the road, and I just said, God, I can't do this anymore. And I said, I want to end my life, and I need you to do something. And I just felt immediately the weight of everything kind of lifted off my shoulders. And I just heard him say, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And from that point forward, again, still going to church, but hearing the message now, it meant a little something more. And I'll never forget Pastor Bradshaw at Harvest making an altar call just feeling that, that burning sensation in the chair, and going up, and before I got baptized, they took me to a room, and one of the guys who was going to ask me, questions before they baptized me was one of the baseball coaches I had. And he just looked at me, he's like, really? That's when I walked in the room, he goes, really? Because he thought I was saved. He thought I was a Christian, and he didn't know. And so I had to share with him everything. And so that was, for me, a turning point. And then at that point, going forward, I kind of had dedicated my life to Christ, and told God, that use me how you want to use me, and got involved, and met a guy named Calvin, and he was a big, and still is, a big influence in my life. He helped me process a lot of things in my childhood and in my life, and the death of my mom, and so from there it just kind of continued and growing in my faith. And I remember thinking, okay, life is gonna be good. I'm gonna find a wife now, and God's gonna bless me for this, and quickly realized that wasn't in His plans. And I remember taking a year off. I was gonna take a year off of dating and dedicate my life to Christ, and I did. And then after that, I was like, all right, God, and the next relationship didn't work out, and I was like, look at what I've done for you. You owe me this. And so having to process through that, and then it actually wasn't long after that I met my wife, Erica, who some of you know, and so she's been a big instrument kind of in my journey. And really from there, it's just been kind of diving into learning. And I remember, when I first truly accepted him, not, just saying it, but actually, that heart change. Now I had a hunger, and I had a want and a desire to actually read God's word and understand it. And then once we moved churches, the desire to teach it, and so being able to lead a small group here at Life Spring has been a big blessing. But that's it. I mean, that's been my story, and I'm not, the way I'll sum it up is this: I am not who I once was, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm not who God has me to be, that I'm going to be, but He's changing me every single day, and I'm grateful for it. So thank you for listening.